sense that you can actually predict that things will not happen.
50% chance of them showing up, stuff like that.
Correct, yeah, and that, you just got to cater for that. But when it's a regular cadence, you can't do it, because otherwise, you're going to be caught short, or you'll have to do all the talking yourself and all this stuff, which is difficult to do. So yeah, timekeeping's all right, no issue with it. Even though just in time has gone out of fashion post COVID, we've been pretty rock solid. So yeah, all good. Anyway, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air. It's episode 178. Bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. Delighted to see everyone here, and really excited to have this topic. This is a topic, again, which I don't have a huge amount of experience or knowledge on, but they're always the best ones, because they're going to educate me, and I think educate Adam also, in terms of what it's all about. It's going to be about from talent intelligence to talent acquisition. Meaning, how do we move talent intelligence away from it being just a reporting kind of tool, or a reporting function, to the point where it's actually baked into how we do talent acquisition at every level of decision making. So this is going to be a really exciting conversation. We've got Jeremy Thornton, who I think is here, and he's going to be joining us in due course with this kind of a special. It's going to be a deep dive case study, where we're going to dive in and figure out from his experience what he's had to implement. Yeah, Adam, on your side, I would say you're freezing a little bit and kind of in and out. So if you can get a better network, that even better. All right, listen, a few sound checks. Obviously, we're having some problems ourselves. So it's worth us kind of just checking whether everyone can hear me okay. Can everyone in Crowdcast who's listening to this, if you're able to hear me and see me without any problems, let me know on the chat there. We should be live streaming this onto my personal LinkedIn. So if you can hear or see me on LinkedIn, where it's set up as a LinkedIn live event, please do let me know whether you can hear me okay. Adam obviously is going to have to bounce off. We can't actually get him back on screen. So maybe this is a wider problem than otherwise we might think. But no, I think people can hear me okay. Seems to be fine. I'm getting a few people. Thank you, Gavin, in LinkedIn. Everyone can hear me okay. Adam, I don't know what you can do to fiddle with it. Maybe go to 4G or something. But yeah, you look solid now. So say something.
Yeah, I'm here and back.
Yeah, that looks all right. So all good. All right. Quick word to our sponsors. As always, folks, we cannot run this show without our sponsors. So please take a moment and check them out. Every week they're stepping up to support this show. This week it's our good friends from Denmark. It is platypus.io. If you haven't heard of platypus, number one, they're named after an awesome creature. Do check them out. They're an amazing animal. Also got a great name, great logo, great concept. It's all about trying to figure out cultural fit to team, rather than do anything broader, like trying to match people to values and all this type of stuff, which is so kind of at a level of abstraction, I think can be very different and less relevant when you're hiring for people, particularly that suit your particular team. So check them out, platypus.io. They are our sponsors this week. Okay, let's get on with the show. I think Jeremy is with us, so let's bring him on. We'll have a chat with him. And I know this came about through your conversations with Jeremy. So I'll be very interested to dive in and get a little bit of a peek of this. I think it might be Jeremy's debut on this show, actually, which is really cool. By the way, folks, let me know in sort of chat yourself, in the chat stream, whether you have got any experience of talent intelligence. Like, what does that mean to you? Is that something, a term that makes any sense? We actually have a poll on Crowdcast here, so go ahead and vote. Let me know where the distribution is there. And if you're on LinkedIn, you know anything or you don't about talent intelligence, what are your thoughts? Is this something that you're keen to explore, heard about, not quite sure what it's all about? Or is it something that actually, we've been doing that for ages, so all good.
So I've got something quite important, I think, to add to this, and at the beginning, and that is, I don't think what we're talking about here is talent intelligence. So,
you're talking about people analytics.
It's about data. It's about data and analytics that you can generate from your talent acquisition data. So I think, like, we've got the master of talent intelligence here, the godfather of talent intelligence in the chat, Toby. It's not about his talent intelligence. It's not about like, right, so we've got to hire 50,000 more underwater basket weavers, and what we find out is actually there's loads of those in New York City, and we should buy companies that are based there. So that's not like the like pure definition of talent intelligence is that type of stuff. So when you see these companies going, yeah, we're talent intelligence software providers, they're not. They're data analytics and stuff like that. So I'm going with like Toby's version of talent analytics is something quite specific.
I agree. I'm going with Toby's as well. I think it is very specific. But it may be that Jeremy has got a more expansive situation there. I mean, let's figure out what he's done with it. And the division I've got is basically talent intelligence is external, so analyzing the intelligence of the skills outside of your company, maybe inside your company if you think about internal mobility and all that type of stuff as well. Whereas people analytics is more about monitoring what's happening within your business specifically. But yeah, let's see whether we do understand these terms. They could be in and out, they could be randomly and differently. Jeremy, I think he's trying to accept, so we can't get him on as of yet. Toby, you might actually have to drop in and give us your verdict. So it could be one of those. In fact, Toby did volunteer to come on. And I did say to him, you know what, mate, make sure your webcam's on and ready to go. So I might well bring Toby on as well, as you know, he is the godfather, so to speak.
Jeremy, are you there?
Jeremy,
he's actually phoned me. He was phoning me a couple of minutes ago. I've got no idea whether he's. Let me just respond.
He is there. He's tried to respond. He's tried to accept. And we'll see what happens. I mean, basically, he's just got to click accept on the modal, Jeremy. If you can see that, basically a pop up on your screen, and there you go. There he is, Toby. And you know Toby's not intended to be here because he's clearly just like got out under the duvet.
No, he did that here. He did that here just in case he was coming on camera, right?
What is happening with that Barnett, Toby? I mean, Jesus.
I need a haircut. I had someone turn around to me yesterday saying, "I'm really sorry, is it a really early morning call for you?" And I was like, "No, I'm UK based." And they're like, "Sorry, I thought you just got out of bed." First time I ever met this person. Internal call. Awesome.
Do you know, I reckon that's how you should do it. You should set your standards really low, so that anything above will be
it's all win.
That's it. Toby's really made the effort. He's brushed his teeth today, that kind of thing.
I was promised no camera. You just camera.
Mate, cameras on. Anyway, Toby, let's start with sort of definitions. I mean, is it important to have tight definitions here so we know what we're talking about? Where do you sit on it? You actually wrote a book called Talent Intelligence that's just been out, so make sure you can check that out, folks. Feel free to share that link into the chat stream, by the way. But how have you treated the terminology and the discipline? How have you dealt with that?
Yeah, so look, Jeremy's here now. I can chip off. He's got much nicer hair than me as well.
Look at his hair. His hair's so beautiful. Toby, jeez, this is awful. I think don't want that comparison.
Jeremy took his time to make sure he had his side sorted out before he came on screen, which I totally understand.
I'm just going to keep quiet here whilst you three just take chunks out of each other. So yeah,
no. All right. Listen, as we're all on screen, we might as well stay on screen. So let's do some intros for people who don't know. So why don't we go with you first, Jeremy? Who are you? What it is you do, sir?
So I'm Jeremy. I'm currently at Citi, the bank. Joined them looking after all of their EMEA data, talent acquisition, data and reporting. And have recently picked up a global project to deliver it across 256 countries, I think. Prior to that, 20 odd years in recruitment, been on the vendor side, and yeah, in the last 2 years, swapped over to the other side.
Yeah, very exciting. And Jeremy, I don't think we've actually had a proper conversation since you moved to Citi. So very exciting for me to get your update on this. And it sounds like you've got yourself a proper chunky role there, which is very, very exciting to hear. Okay, Toby, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, I'll introduce myself, then feel free to throw me off because you're here to talk to Jeremy, not me. So I lead talent intelligence for Amazon, worldwide Amazon stores, which is essentially everything you buy from us through to how it ends up at your door. except for the hourly workers. So I don't do the million plus army of individuals. But yeah, we do everything from your e-commerce stuff, so Amazon.com, through to the retail side of the business, through to robotics, logistics, warehousing. So yeah, we cover quite a few different areas, different job functions, different job families, different locations. Yeah, that's what I do.
That's amazing. And again, this is like, I think one of the things immediately that we know, maybe this is sample bias from the two gents that we have on screen, but it is a kind of discipline that suits the scale. It's at the scale where it makes most sense.
No,
you don't think
no,
so?
100% the other way.
I've been contradicted straight
really,
away. Well, let's hear it
then.
That's all right. I don't know what I'm
Feel
doing.
free to throw me off.
When someone like Toby talks, we listen.
Let's hear it, Tob.
This will be the last thing I say, because this is about Jeremy, not me. If Amazon, for argument's sake, or Citi put 1,000 developers in the wrong site, the wrong location, and it goes horribly wrong, it's toxic, and that R&D center fails, they're going to survive. It'll be painful, but they're going to survive. If you're a small tech startup and you put 10 people in the wrong location, you could collapse. So the smaller you are, the more important every single hire is. So you need to get the TI in at an earlier stage, because if your comp's wrong, if your branding's wrong, if your persona or intelligence is wrong, if your location strategy is wrong, if your org design is wrong, whatever it is, every single time it makes a huge, huge difference. So although you'll see it more in bigger companies because they've got the economies of scale to start looking at this stuff more, ironically, the smaller you are, the more important this is.
That's very interesting. Jeremy, you were nodding your head in agreement with Toby as contradiction on me. So can you get your observation on the relevancy of TI when it comes to scale? I mean, you seem to agree that earlier the better, no matter what scale you're at.
From personal experience, when I set up my business, we set up our business 15, 20 years ago in Hertfordshire. And I wish we'd looked at talent intelligence, because we set it up in a location where we found out very quickly we were fighting with talent that wanted to work in central London. It was easy for talent to get in central London. So yeah, for us as a small business, that had a major impact on us. On the flip side, when we did move to London, we were impacted in other unexpected ways. So I think that whole talent intelligence, that really understanding the true dynamics of the workforce, understanding the drivers, understanding where the pools of talent sit, is critical. And as a small business, most small businesses are looking at they're looking to survive in the early days. They're looking to grow, they're looking to survive. And cash flow can be really, really tight. And as Toby alluded to, at Citi or at Amazon, if we put 1,000 seats in the wrong place and it doesn't work out, the project gets put on hold, and share price might take a minute little hit, but it's not the same as the impact it would have on a smaller business.
Yeah, I totally get it. So, folks, that's the first kind of. I don't know whether anybody had previously shared my misconception on this, but there's the first lesson to learn. Essentially, TI is at relevance no matter what the scale of your business, and maybe even more so the smaller you are, because essentially every hire at that point is a bigger percentage of your overall organization. If you're 150,000 person business, getting it 50 people wrong is like, okay, not something you want to do, but it's still a drop in that sort of human capital ocean, so to speak. But if you're a 10 person business, you hire 2 people wrong, you know what? That's 20% of your business. And that's mega, mega relevant. So very interesting to hear that type of commentary. Well done plugging the book, Toby. How are the sales going, by the way, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, it's been out just a couple of weeks. How are you getting on with it? No idea.
I've no idea. Apparently, we only find out every 6 months. They do some kind of audit thing for royalties and stuff. But on a day-to-day, nothing really tracks how many. I can see how I go on like Amazon top bestsellers and all that malarkey. But I think it's doing all right. Are
your kids not counting? I mean, there's a big box in the Wendy house, is there not? Are your kids not counting how many envelopes they're stuffing?
They're just enjoying stacking them all up and using them as a climbing frame. We've got hundreds of copies out there.
Do you know what's interesting here? Like, it must be very frustrating for someone who's working in data to not have any visibility of any type for something like this. And
I've raised it once or twice.
I think it goes one further, right? It's not only someone in data who doesn't have visibility of data, but they're working for the company that can give them the data and the visibility of the data they want, and they're in their data visual. Yeah, I mean
It's this the lack of dog food being eaten here is very clear. But it's crazy that you don't know until the money comes in. Yeah, it's like
100%. I raised the question: how do we know how many we've got? Because the initial run on books is like 500 books is the initial run. I was like, how do we know how many we've got left if we don't know how many we've sold? I haven't got a reply to that yet, because most of it's not through Amazon; it's through the publishers directly. But I don't know. I think it's doing all right. I think you're asking.
It's weird, very strange. I mean, it's obviously ripe for disruption in some way, because it's clear that there's a lot of like fetching and carrying within traditional publishing, which is where Kogan Page, obviously a very reputable traditional publisher, but there's massive gaps in terms of where the information is, which is kind of unreasonable at this day and age, because that affects like what you're meant to do. If it's not going as well as you think, then yeah, you can amp up the marketing, and push it a bit. But if you have no visibility, what's the motivation to do that? It's like crazy. Anyway, listen,
almost ties into recruitment marketing intelligence as well, which Jeremy knows way more than me about.
I suspect J.K. Rowling's got a slightly different setup, though, to be honest.
She probably doesn't. I think she's traditional publisher. But one of the things that's really some of the newer ways to getting books out, which is obviously vanity publishing we did before, but there's products like Gumroad, which apparently is the DIY version of getting your book out. And I know a few people who've done it, self-publish on Gumroad. They've done well in the sense they've made more money, I think, than they would have done traditional publishing. But they've tracked it as well. Like you can just track how fast it's going or not, which is, I think, critical for how it needs to go in future. So yeah. Anyway, listen, Toby, I'm not sure whether you want to hang around or whether you want to go and take a nap or something. But we're gonna.
I'll still be in the chat, but throw me off so you can have a proper chat with Jeremy without me disrupting.
Yeah. I'll kick you off now. And listen, we might need to bring you back in for additional insight. But you go and have a lie down, mate. Get back under the duvet. All right, cool. Great to see Toby on. By the way, that was the original purpose of Brainfood Live, was to actually bring randoms on. So if anybody fancies coming on screen, just raise your hat. Just say so on chat there, and we'll bring you on. Anyway, Jeremy, let's focus on you, and let's have a look at these projects that you've been involved in. Can you rewind the clock for us and give us the day one sort of brief, like when they were talking to you about this particular project or even this particular role? What was the objective? What was the situation then? And what did they want you to do?
So it was quite interesting. I've known Steve, who was heading up EMEA talent acquisition at Citi, for many years. I mean, I've known him sort of 15, 20 years. I placed him 3 or 4 times in the past when I ran Oasis HR. So he called me up saying, we basically need to right size the function. That was pretty much about the brief I got. I mean, I knew Steve, I liked Steve, and I was thinking, well, from my perspective, if you're going to go and do reporting, you want to go and do reporting ideally in a large organization. I wanted to do something different. I'd never worked in financial services. I'd always wondered what would it be like to sit on one of those floors in Canary Wharf with 200 other people? Are you just another little, how do you fit in? How does it all work? My only experience of corporate life before going to Citi was I did a 6 month secondment at Booking.com. Similar. I knew Katrina over there, Katrina Hutchinson, Kevin, and they approached me. Funnily enough, actually, in my career to date, I've never yet managed to successfully apply for a job. Every job I've been, I just one day maybe I will go through the interview process and be, get a job. But so I joined Citi, and the basic brief was, what we have we know isn't fit for purpose. Can you help progress? Within the first few weeks of joining, the person who was delivering the operational recruitment, suddenly I was made aware he was going off on secondment. So literally it was hiring a team, getting business as usual, getting some continuity in place. Literally was the first sprint that we did, whilst in the background started to look at the longer term strategy in terms of what does the business need. What is his core strategy, and how can we support that with data?
Let me roll it back to the point you made about right sizing. So that tells me about getting the right numbers of people, or the right volume of human person power, if you want to call it that, applied to the requirement of the business. What did that mean? Cutting staff? I mean, is that just a long about way of saying we need to be smaller, or
no? So quite the opposite, actually. Citi are going through a major transformation. Their hiring numbers are, for the last 2 years, just been growing and growing and growing. So the Citi, to put some context in place, until 3 years ago, Citi outsourced. They were 100% outsourced. So they've got a very embryonic TA function. It's been built. Steve managed a fantastic transition across from the RPO provider. We now have the direct team in place, but the key driver during that transformation period was to ensure minimal disruptions to business. So that's why the focus was on getting recruiters in, getting the bums on the seats, getting the handle turning. Then what happened was during COVID, actually, was prior to and during COVID, was the majority of the market was slowing down. Citi was significantly ramping up. So then we've been going through a right sizing project. Now, with all of that happening, that's where the key focus was, right? The key focus wasn't necessarily on reporting, the analytics, and everything else. So my job when I came on board was to help put some of the basics in place. And the way that Citi historically ran their reporting didn't enable them to analyze, interrogate, and digest the large, complex data sets that we have in a way where we can take meaningful operational direction moving forward. It's great. They had lots of big numbers, right? Loads of big numbers at a global level or regional level, but we're, in EMEA, we're across 57 countries globally, 256, I think, off the top of my head. And to put scale into, to give you an idea of scale, last month we did 10,000 hires in a month. So it's a big old machine. So it's just trying to put some governance around how we get our data, how we manage our data, how we distribute our data, in the format that we do that.
All of it sounds really interesting. I mean, I totally understand why you were attracted to take on this particular role, Jeremy. It sounds like one of those quite rare opportunities, really, to get stuck in, particularly when there was a transition from outsourced provider, and which probably had their own way of working, and and then bringing the function in-house, and then using that sort of a moment to simultaneously become a much more data-orientated business function, should I say, within TA. What sort of things did you implement in order to get there? I mean, can you take us through, when that particular part of the project started? What was the first 90 days looking like when you were pulling all that stuff together?
I mean, in fairness, the first 90 days was me trying to get my head around business. I mean, the scale of it. Also, it's a sector that I've never worked in. So, I call it city speak. They have these, literally, you can walk in there and people talking. It seems that it's a virtual foreign language, all the acronyms and everything else. So it was understanding that. It was then trying to get an understanding of what was historically delivered. So what historical reports did we have? How were they built? How were they managed? We found that they were running through, a number of really old, databases, really old tech, where any change in terms of the data format caused, multiple things to fall over. So it was really understanding what is the current environment like. What I didn't have time to do at Citi was I didn't have time to, what I would describe as put in that sort of business partnering stage, which is go out to the business, understand what's the business want, what does the business and function want? How are we currently evidencing our success? How are we currently using data to influence the businesses, how the business thinks, how we're currently aligned to strategy? So it was quite interesting. I skipped that out, and basically I built based upon my knowledge, having been building these systems for the last 6-8 years, what I thought was fit for purpose as a starting point. So at least we had that datum that we could then, which we can now start to refer to, which is we have this where we can now start to look and plan a proper dev journey moving forward. Now that we have provided the basic data in the right format to quell everything down and get to a business as normal sort of cadence.
What did that involve? Did that involve just collecting the information or collecting the data from these disparate systems and ingesting it into a single data?
Yeah. Long story short, we built a system in Power BI. We have Workday as our back end, so we take the data out of Workday that goes into Power BI. Number of different reports, number of different elements. I won't bore you with them all. And then from Power BI, we built in there the key dashboards to look at where we are from a day-to-day basis, and we built it so that we can drill down to individual candidate level. Because what's really interesting about Citi is you've got the scale, B, you've got the regulatory complexity. Then over the top of that, we've got the fact that we have, for example, one business area might be operating across 15, 20 different countries. So then when you start to dial all of those into account, it makes it really interesting in terms of how they need to be able to cut that data and analyze that data. And then on the flip side as well, we obviously have to deliver centralized data up to global, because we're a global function. So Citi has major hubs in North America, APAC, Europe, Mexico, and a few other areas. So it's sort of quite an interesting matrixed environment.
So what I'd like to find out about is, because you can't go in, I mean, you can't go into lots of details, because obviously there's a lot of confidential stuff that you're dealing with here. Now, what, from not specifically the job that you've been doing with Citi, but generally from your experience in running resourcing insights and working in booking and working in Citi and that combined experience, what are all of the big wins that a TA team can get from analyzing the data in the way that you go about doing it? What are the main wins in your view?
So I think talent acquisition and HR historically are not very good at evidencing their success. We do a great job, right? I mean, you look at talent acquisition, then you start to look at the impact that talent acquisition and HR has on a business's bottom line. CEOs talk about people being their most important asset. You talk to finance, people are their most expensive resource. But there seems to be a bit of lots of smoke and mirrors. So really, I think the key thing is to understand what's the key business strategy, and how can we evidence that our strategy is aligned to the business strategy, and this is the success that we are having. And then also, I think it's about producing consistent data from a golden source, visualized in a consistent manner, no matter whether in Citi I'm looking at a slice of one of our shared service centers in Olsztyn in Poland, or I'm looking at our EMEA operation as a whole. The same data, the same visualizations, so that there is a consistency. So when the business see TA data, they're not having to try and translate, what does this mean? We start to talk the same language, and we start to talk in their language, and then doing that in partnership with HR, I suppose in most organizations, they'll be the HR business partners, to make sure that they have the evidence. Because as we all know, I say that what I always say to everyone in TA is a mix of three things. It's a mixture of discussion, debate, and therapy. So we have lots of great discussions, we have lots of great debates, but there is the therapy aspect. And the therapy aspect is that if you speak to most TA professionals, they will acknowledge that we all appreciate that, hiring managers, they're better recruiters than we are. Recruitment's really easy. We are literally blessed to do their recruitment for them, and they can do it better than us. So that's your starting point, right? All your hiring managers think they're the best recruiters. So actually evidencing that this is what we do, this is why we're doing it, and this is the effect, and this is the benefit that it has on you, Mr. Hiring Manager, and this is how it's going to help you achieve your objectives, ultimately your bonus, and help you progress your career. Once you put it in that light, an example I always remember is a really good friend of mine worked in a lot of the major law companies, and she said the challenge you have working in a law company is you're dealing with lawyers, and they're paid to argue for a living. So you're never gonna influence them by trying to talk to them. They've made their mind up. However, what they're all focused on is their billable hours. They all have a target of how many billable hours they have to deliver each month. Soon as you relate talent acquisition in a law company to billable hours, if TA do this, you get an increase in your billable hours of XYZ. Suddenly the penny drops, and they understand. And it's getting that link up. It's that influence and building those partnerships.
That's really, really interesting, Jeremy. And Stephen, I don't think that's fair. It's a lot of sucking up. I don't think this is sucking up. I think what this is using your term, Jeremy, which I really like, is the evidencing the work. And I remember this as almost like selling the pain, quote unquote. When you go, I remember a very early trainer I had in agency world was that, look, you can't just go and deliver the candidate. You actually have to basically sell the pain that you've gone through to get to that point. In other words, what did you do to activate these candidates? How many people did you connect with? How many conversations did you have? How many did that translate into an interview? How many interviews did you conduct before you got to a shortlist? Then you present the shortlist. So you sell the work before you deliver the outcome. I guess, I mean, that if you scale that out to a company-wide perspective, I guess, is that what you mean by evidencing the activity?
Yeah. So what I've done a lot in the past, haven't done this at Citi because Citi haven't reached the sort of level of maturity where we're ready for it. But in the past, it's starting to relate the impact of TA on the business's bottom line. Ultimately, how much is it costing a business to have an empty seat? If you can, if you take the very simplistic way of looking at it is you take the annual revenue of an organization, take their last published number, divide that by employees, and you get average revenue per employee. Divide that by 220 for working days, and that's basically the revenue that each employee delivers per day. Now, a lot of people will say, well, in some companies you've got high revenue generators, and you've got people who don't revenue generate. And I would say exactly, but the high revenue generators, they cannot operate without the non-revenue generators. If there's not a marketing function, finance function, HR function looking after your sales guys, guess what? They're not going to sell. If they've got no IT, they can't sell. So you can work out your how much it's costing per day to have that empty seat. You then multiply that across X thousand requisitions. You then take that to finance. And say to finance, and I've done this many times, look, we have a very, very basic model. And I know that you'll help us to better align this to XYZ business, right? You get them on the journey. What the outcome of that is that you've then got, this is a joint TA and finance project. And in a lot of organizations, you throw in the word finance and suddenly guess what? People are paying attention. Also, this way you get to a number that's big enough. Finance in most organizations don't care about TA because it's minus spend. TA, the operational cost of TA is tiny. It doesn't even make there's not even a line for it in their accounts. However, when you start to look at the human capital cost of having those empty seats, suddenly you're saying to them, right, basically this is, if you increase or decrease your time to hire by this amount of time, it's going to put an extra 2-4% on our annual revenue. Suddenly they're like, okay, now I'm listening. And you've got to build those relationships. You've got to align yourself into those people's worlds and let them and evidence to them that what you are doing is beneficial to everyone. It's not just yet another yet another flash in the plan, or yet another great idea, and we hear thousands of them, but nothing ever lands. And it's having that and being able to back that up with actual data That's for me is the key part.
All right, so a couple of things that's worth touching on here, Jeremy, which I really like. The first thing to do is to develop a very, very rough, unfinished basic model that you can bring to the financial department, the CFO, or whoever it is that's on top of this. And then that person will help you mold the next version of this, which is the real thing. So the wrong thing to do would be to go away, develop your own model, completely sophisticated, and then present something that is just too tough to digest for the FD, or they haven't had the chance to get involved themselves, and you already kind of create a friction in relationship because they haven't contributed to it. What you want to do basically is present almost an unfinished bit of work that invites them to contribute fully with it. And as you say, here's a rough kind of model. What we need you to do, Mrs. or Mr. Financial expert, is to align it with the business need, and together you bring it on, and it's a joint proposition to the rest of the business.
Ideally, you want them to think they're coming up with all the ideas, because if it's their idea, guess what? It gets accelerated even faster. But and it's not just finance, right? I mean, that's just the first part of it. But then it's marketing. So actually, you can then go to the marketing function or the sales function and start to evidence. I mean, sales is the easiest one, right? Because they can very quickly work out what's your average revenue per salesperson. I can see Adam nodding his head there, because back when he was running sales teams, exactly what revenue you expect a sales function to deliver. But also, I think TA can learn a lot from sales as well. A sales function is great at celebrating success. They are great at being able to know exactly what target they've hit, when they've hit it, etc., etc. So I think you can learn a lot from them.
I think marketing's the same though, because you can. I mean, the chief marketing officer's got MQL target. They've got a pipeline target. They've got a clicks target. So marketing back in the day might have not been so easy to measure, but it's just as easy to measure as sales today.
Yeah, I mean, I think in most businesses, right, in the digital age we're in, the challenge then becomes you have too much data, right? You've got all this data, and unless you have a coherent strategy in place and you have built in the agility to manage this data, because what you don't want to do is suddenly turn this massive data tap on, right, and flood the business with data, because you'll just end up with, I call it the magpie effect. People see something shiny, they head off in that direction. Something else shiny, they head off in that direction. Something else. It's what you see lots of, and having sat on the other side of the fence, it's what I've seen lots of startups do. They come up with one idea and go that, then someone says that, so they totally change their business models to try and win that customer over there, and they change their business model to try and win another customer over there. I think as a TA function, you need to have a coherent strategy, and that strategy needs to have the resilience in it, so that when data does come to light, you know what data you're going to action. Or else what happens is you just end up with a longer list of things to do, and you get stretched. So it's keeping that laser focus.
Let's talk about the laser focus, because I think the old metrics that we always used to have in TA, we all know what they are, and I'm not saying that they're irrelevant and whatnot, but it might be we're due for a refresh, or we need to rethink exactly, what sorts of numbers we need to be looking at in order to drive the right behaviors within our function, but at the same time be able to use that information to interact more effectively with the rest of the business. On Brainfood, on the newsletter, almost always, whenever I send a post that says, hey, here are the HR KPIs you need to care about, that always gets like 1,000 clicks, because everyone's like desperate for this information. So can you volunteer for us some KPIs that you think should be in there for a TA team? Are there things that you think, why is this not standard?
Yeah, for me, there's only 3 KPIs: cost, time, and quality. And so the business needs to decide which of those they want to focus on. You can choose 2 out of 3 generally. So from a KPI perspective, everyone is always trying to come up with a new KPI. And I did smart, because I saw Adam put a little note in there for Danny about the empty chair time, right? You can reinvent the wheel. Empty chair time is time to hire, no matter how you dress it up, right? The key thing is, how are you influencing the revenue? That's what the CEO cares about. He cares about the revenue, he cares about the share price. So I think that the key thing is to stay focused on the metrics and have a few, because the challenge are you've got busy operational recruiters who are probably doing a fantastic job filling recs, right? They're pulling unicorns out of the hat left, right, and centre. They don't have time in the day to go, right, how am I tracking against this? How am I tracking against that? How am I tracking against that? We need to lift that away from them. We need to lift that away, and we need to give them clear direction of each recruiter. We need to be able to look at that recruiter as an individual within a business area and say to that recruiter, look, we can look at your data and we can see this is the area that we think you would benefit from focusing on at this point in time. And that might change, right? You might have a recruiter where you might turn around to 1 month, actually, can we speed things up? The next month, it might be, actually, we need to slow things down because we're not, we're potentially not ensuring we've got the right quality. So I think it's about having the right metric at the right time for the right person in the right place, rather than these sort of broad brush, this is what it's all about. But overarching, TA don't need to decide what their key metric is. Their key metric is already decided for them in the business strategy. Is the business going to grow?
Yep.
Is the business looking to move from a high volume to high quality? Is the business looking to transition its business from a traditional retail seller into a e-commerce company? Is it looking to move from, like Philip Morris, a traditional cigarette manufacturer, which was a very, very simple process, to e-cigarettes, where they're now developing tech, developing electronics.
Consumer electronics. Exactly.
So it's that piece that dictates it. What I think where a lot of TA analytics and data functions fall over is they come in and try and dictate. We know this will work. This is the magic recipe. It's having that ability to really partner with the business, partner with the stakeholders, build those relationships, and understand what they need and who can take you on that journey with them, rather than trying to take them on that journey.
Brilliant. Jeremy, before we get to Sophie's question, we will get there. I just wanted to firstly address, if you do have any questions, try and put them into the Ask a Question section at the bottom of the screen, because we're going to get to those at the end. Otherwise, we might get it lost within the chat stream. So that's going to be something that's useful. For the folks that have asked questions in LinkedIn, I do see them. So Gavin will get to you, and Matt will get to you as well. We'll absolutely respond to those. So if you're on LinkedIn, just comment and we'll get to those questions. However, we always use this opportunity to take a mini break. The reason for this is that it's very important for me that Brainfood Live is a conversation starting show. We start a conversation. We should never be the bottleneck for it. However, we do have to come off air, which is about 15 minutes time. So if you're interested in this type of conversation, you want to continue it, now is the time where you should actually go ahead and connect with people that also share that interest. So take a moment, grab your LinkedIn profile and stick it in the chat stream, as Adam just done there. If you're on LinkedIn itself, you click, get your LinkedIn profile and stick it in a comment thread, and then connect to everyone else who has done that. Best case scenario, you walk away 20, 30, 40 new contacts that care about this topic. And then guess what? You can go ahead and talk about that offline when we have to come off air. So make sure you go ahead and do that. And so that we don't be that bottleneck. Okay. Quick question we're going to get to you, Sophie, don't worry. A question for you about lifting the effort away from the operational recruiter. I absolutely get that, Jeremy. I think where the data gets corrupted is when you're asking the busy recruiters to be administrators and data entry people. If you're asking a busy recruiter to say, hey, listen, have you updated the database? Guess what? They're going to start putting in crap into the system just to get rid of that little thing because they're busy doing something else. How do you lift the effort away?
Just on that point, I'm very clear with any recruiter. You are judged on the data that you put into the system. At the end of the year, when you sit down with your manager, it's the data in the system that we're going to judge you on, right? So if you don't put the data in there and you put any crap in there, guess what? Crap in, crap out, yeah? Don't expect to walk into your annual review and have a glowing annual review if you haven't put system and data, because we can't measure you. This is a pen, not a wand, right? I can't magic up and understand what you do. You need to evidence it. And that's the advantage of the right analytics, where the recruiter and the manager prior to that end of month review are both on the same page. They've both got the same data. Obviously, there's context behind that I won't know across all of the recruiters, but that's my answer to that first point.
Is the tone you deliver this message with, look, it's going to be great for you when you fill all the information in because you're going to look good, or you're getting fired if people think that you're not doing your job?
So what I say to any organization that wants to have a data-driven TA function is employ data-driven recruiters. Recruiters get it. And putting data into a system, it's part of a recruiter's job. Doing admin, it's part of a recruiter's job. Chasing up line managers, it's part of a recruiter's job. If a recruiter just wants to do the sourcing bit, go and be a sourcer. If the recruiter just wants to be otherwise, go and do those areas. We have lots of opportunity. There are loads of opportunities within large TA functions that people can go and silo and focus their career. But you need to be a 360 recruiter. You need to be able to manage. You need to understand what is the proposition, right? As a function, are we offering EasyJet or are we offering a Virgin Atlantic, upper class service? I.e., EasyJet, we're going to give the managers the tools they can go and fly their own plane. Upper class, we're literally going to handhold. We're going to sit in on every single interview. We're going to fill in every single post interview questionnaire with the manager. We're going to sit in on every single test, etc. So I think it's making sure the recruiters understand what is expected of them and being really, really clear about that. And if collecting data is an important part, make sure they realise that, and it puts them obviously in the right way. And when you interview them, right, if you're going to join XYZ company as a recruiter, you're going to join this function. We're data led. This is what we do. And most recruiters love it. They like data. They like being able to see, am I doing a good job?
Well, they should.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
Firstly, Jeremy, I like that approach. It's very much tough love, but it's very direct. And I think it's you get it right at the entry point, because what you want to be able to do is have that conversation, be pre-hiring these recruiters so that they're fully aware this is the culture of recruiting within the TA team here. And if you're not that type of person, then it's not the right fit either for this role or maybe for the business. I think it is very difficult.
Yeah. Or when they do join, give them the training. Make sure that we are training and supporting them with the training that they need to be successful in the job.
That's true as well, but I'm just recalling now, again, rewinding back to ancient history. There's a few folks that I remember back in my recruiter days, agency-wise, where I know they would not be able to do this because they don't have the interest and they don't actually value it, and that would not be a suitable recruiter for this team. And we have to be very honest with that and say, look, this is actually a component of the job. It's a significant component of it, because this is how we measure success, but it's also a key part of how we talk to the rest of the business. And without that contribution, you're actually going to be a drag factor for the organization, no matter how skillful or charismatic you are on the phone or whatever it is.
I think going back to being a conversation, in a small organization, you don't need it. In a small organization, you don't necessarily need the data rigor that you need in a large organization. But when you've got a large organization where you have regions rolling up to global, et cetera, globally, they don't see what we do on a daily basis. All they see is the top line numbers, and that's what we're judged on.
Yeah, I think you can even look at it from a kind of a room by room situation. If you could fit all of your business in a single room, back in the day when we were all in office, everyone could fit in a single floor, a single room, you could probably get away with having a lighter touch data type of regimen, because there's a lot of information flowing simply because of the scale of the organization. But if it's a multi-room, multi-site, multi-country scenario, no one can see anything. And now with the world of being distributed, even more so do we need to be disciplined on the data side, because this is going to be trending towards where the future is going to be. Okay, good stuff. A couple of things that need to be addressed, Jeremy. You've implemented all of this, changed the culture of the organization, moved to a more data-driven way of working. Can you point to any scenarios where you can say, you know what, the business has shifted in this direction based on the data that we've been able to provide them? Like, for instance, have you altered or been able to influence the business decision-making based on some of the work that you did? So can you give us some examples of that?
Yeah, so I worked at a professional service organisation long time ago. Well, not that long ago, a few years back now. One of the larger consultancies, and basically off the back of what we did, they tripled the size of their TA team, because for them, time to hire was the key driver, right? A consultant came on the market. They wanted to get that consultant from the beginning to the end of their process, from initial introduction to offer, as quick as possible, because they knew that consultant was also probably interviewing with all their competitors, right? And also they knew the sooner they get that consultant signed up, he's out on client site making money. So basically they had their recruitment function ended up being 3 times the size of the standard recruitment function, but their key business driver was time. And you needed that volume to push people through. There's been loads of examples of sort of Toby's world where you can look at location strategy, look at the data, time, quality, cost of hiring in one location versus another location, so you can start to influence those decisions, and that's a very timely conversation for most people as we approach year end. So yeah, I mean, there's lots and lots of things. I mean, just to, I suppose, also touch on Sophie's question there. Whenever you're doing this, you never get all the data in the system. You never have everyone using the system in the same way. So yeah, you've got to look at the outliers. I mean, where I am right now, we have different legislation, so we can't have the same system running in the same way across all of our different geographies and all of our different territories. Also, we are regularly making acquisitions, so we are regularly, inheriting legacy. So I don't think I've ever had the full picture. But if you can sort of, look at the 80th percentile and, understand where you are with that, generally that will put you on a good direction of travel. Once you have that, you can then start to look at the outliers. You can start to look at the, the other areas and how you can influence and add value. But yeah, you'll never get consistent data. However, once you start giving individuals visibility of their data, and they realize that actually what they enter on the system will have an impact, they will start to improve the quality of what they put in it, because they want their little dashboard to be a correct representation of what they've done, right? So if you can show them, look, if you put in the right sources, etc., you will get the right output. They soon start to do that. What people don't like is being asked, can you please go and enter 85 data points, and you have a drop down list with 47 different options. Well, a drop down list on a database is like the wine list in a restaurant. Most people will go for the second option. Yeah. So if you want to skew your data, put what you want at number 2, and you will get more hits than anyone else. So what I've also found generally when I go into an organisation is they collect far too much data. They're going to be collecting this, and a lot of the stuff they've added to over time is because someone asked a question, oh, we can collect that, and then someone else asked a question, we can collect that, and they collect it for a reason, but then they don't remove it once they've achieved what they wanted to achieve. So you have all this legacy data. So generally, I would say 60% of the data that organisations ask their recruiters to collect, they do not need. If you are only reporting on whether someone is an agency hire, a direct hire, or a internal hire, then you only need 3 drop downs. What you don't need is 15 drop downs for a poor recruiter to fill on a database to put source of hire.
Yeah, very good. We need to move to the questions, Jeremy. I know you've already sort of spoken to Sophie's there. Sophie's actually got a second component to the question which I think is relevant, which you might be able to comment on also, which is you do have a global organization, distributed different cultures often. May have come from acquisitions as well, so different from a corporate culture as well. How do you get everyone to adopt the same standards of behavior? Is there a technique that you could talk about there?
I think you just got to listen. You got to invest time, right? You got to build those relationships. You got to spend time. You got to listen to them, understand their challenges and little wins. Just focus on the little wins. If an organization, if a recruiter in a territory might have a massive frustration by us making a very small change, it has a big impact on them. So it's trying to understand where you can have the maximum impact. But yeah, just talk to them. Don't assume. Everyone assumes they know what a recruiter does. Everyone assumes they know what good looks like. Have those conversations.
Yep, and there's all kinds of like local conditions which can sometimes have a dramatic impact, particularly if there's legislation issues or there's different cultural values that need to be applied and so on. Okay, we're going to go to the questions. I'm going to go to Crowdcast first, then LinkedIn. Okay, so let's go with Victoria Hill. Victoria is saying, how would a senior TA specialist help their leader identify which KPIs the team should be focused on? So, and she's the addendum here is, I report directly to our VP of strategy, and we currently have not held to any metrics. How can she basically help her boss figure out what metrics to use?
So sit down, understand what are the business's key drivers. So is the business in growth mode? What's going to have the most impact, and then translate those back through to write a list of everything you could measure, right? And then go through that list and say, what if, do I really need this? Yes or no? And you'll soon distill that list down to some key measures, but don't go in there with a preconception of what the outcome should be. Have an open mind.
Yeah, very good. And I think the understanding of the status of the business is very important there as well. Okay, I mean, Sophie's got another question.
Did you see on the chat, Colin, who knows better than to put a question in the chat?
Well, I mean, maybe we should hang on. Maybe we should apply some of the same discipline and say, look, Colin, if you're not
answering that question,
not answering the question, this is an example.
You're not new here, Colin.
Data entry needs to be correct. Put it in the right place, sir. All right, let's go to another question. Sophie said, how have you done anything specifically to get recruiters to change their behavior in regards to this? So basically, can you give us like a local example where, a recruiter, I wouldn't say it's been resistant, but maybe a little bit slower to get with the program? What can a manager do to help that person, change behavior?
Give them visibility. Show them, just show them with the data showing this. People can't argue data, right? Data. If data evidences that, a wall is painted white, then a wall is painted white, So just think, what data can you use, but also what data can you use to evidence their success? You're doing a brilliant job because of this. We're amazed at this. A development area would be this. So go in with that positivity because people like it, and then ask them. People like to talk. So this is showing that is showing that. Why do you think? Why are you having success? People start talking about the success they're having, and then that conversation will lead the direction you need to go to. So I think it's about lining up for success from the beginning.
Yep, and I love that success orientation. So that's fantastic. And we have a question from Colin. Colin said, do you have a recruiter performance dashboard, and can they see it? So in other words, are you recording information on your team, and do they have access to that, or is that for your own eyes?
So my approach is full visibility, right? Everyone has full visibility of everything. There's no, or else you end up with people having little secret squirrels, people worrying. Everyone has full. There are some, right? Because of regulatory requirements, there is some data that individuals cannot see. There's some confidential data that individuals cannot see. However, an individual can go into a system and see how they are performing, because that adds value, right? Because that enables them to self-correct or change direction or try something new. So visibility all the way. As soon as you start having the system says this, the computer says no, people just switch off and they'll just walk out.
Yeah, and I think it can be very corrosive if there was talk of a dashboard that you don't have access to, if the team members are aware that, this thing exists and that no one can see it apart from the boss.
So never use one dashboard in isolation. Always have 3 or 4 because they tell the story. So never take one point in data. Make sure that there's a coherent story evidenced by a number of data points.
All right, cool. We're just going to fly through this. Toby's come in. He's got out of bed again, and he's decided to ask this question. Do you marry any talent acquisition analytics data, funnel conversions, etc., with any other data sets internally or externally? So in other words, employee sentiment, Glassdoor type of metrics. Are those involved in what you do, or do you think superfluous?
Yeah, massively. So start at the beginning. Once the function gets to a stage where you are sophisticated enough to do that, but get the basics in place first before you flood in, or else you end up with loads and loads of data. But also make sure you understand that data source. because there's nothing worse than using what I describe as survey data, where people go out and they survey, an organization, what's your time to hire? And the head of recruitment's time to hire is 100 days, but he says 60 because that's what he thinks it should be.
Yep.
So make sure you're credible data.
I totally get it. Okay, we have one more question from LinkedIn. This is from Gavin. So let me just ask this question. We're talking about scale again, so let's draw it back down to this, because I think a lot of people would simply be hearing you, and obviously we're talking about Citi and stuff like this as mega scale. What would you recommend for a business that's motivated to do this, but 10 to 20 people? Maybe it's an agency, a recruitment agency, let's say, or it's a department with that type of scale. They want to get started doing something like this. How would you go ahead and do that?
What I'd do is I would go and get a talented intern. There's some amazing talent out there.
Yep.
So what some of these interns are doing in terms of within the likes of Tableau, Tibco, Click, Power BI, they can build what you need. Don't go and buy it. You can go and buy something like a Salesforce, but 9 times out of 10, a business of that size, if you have someone who can build that basic automation and some of the talent, that early careers talent is phenomenal. Kids are now coding at age of 10, right? So yeah, use that.
That's true. All of the analytics that you see on recruitingbrainfood.com, that's been built by my cousin who was unpaid labor, and he built them all in Tableau. So I had to pay a little bit, but
I was just about to say, please make sure you pay your interns. There's nothing worse than unpaid labor being forced to people to do that. Sorry.
Not if they're family. That's his duty. So anyway, no, that's good. Listen, we're coming to the end of the show. I think there's so much more to talk about on this topic. We definitely need to explore, maybe do a round 2, get Toby back in and get some of the other people who've been working in TI as well. I did actually speak to a lot of people. It's starting to we're starting to get, if you like, a little community developing. I know Toby's got a fantastic group on LinkedIn, Talent Intelligence Collective. I recommend everyone join that, by the way. Someone pull up the link to the Facebook group and share that, because it's a really, really great group, because it's very focused on this space. And yeah, I think we should do a round 2 of this and get more conversations of this type going. Okay, that's about it. We're gonna let you go. Jeremy, great to see you and fantastic to see your work. You have a very good weekend, sir. And yeah, we'll see you later, man. Great to have you.
Thanks for the invitation. Enjoyed it, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
How very interesting. Okay, folks, we're also going to finish the show here. We are back on Monday with Brainfood Baked Fresh. We've got an amazing newsletter coming out on Sunday, and I need to find a way to share this with you, actually, Adam, before it actually goes live. It would be wicked if you get an early view if you want it, because usually it's done by Saturday. But it's got some really interesting sort of bits of commentary. We're here on 12:30 on Monday, so make sure you check that out. We're back on Brainfood Live on next Friday. We're going to be talking employer branding in a recession economy. So if you're interested or thinking about that, then make sure you join that also. Okay, that's about it. You have a good weekend. See you all later. That was pretty good, wouldn't it? You say, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I added mainly because I added absolutely nothing. That was a good part of it. But the reason I added nothing because I was just listening. I told you that was a good.
Anything either. Yeah,
good guy to have on.
Great to see him, and maybe we should do some more of these case study types. I mean, pick out someone who's done something interesting, and just deep dive, focus on that, just to mix it up a little bit. Yeah, a little bit of a risk, though the person might not turn up. That's my own concern. So. Anyway, right. Listen,
are we on Discord?
We are, but no, because I do want to experiment with it. But I wonder whether, because I think the Discord limit is 25 people, and I don't think we're going to get that many people. But basically, I think it's just a bit too weird at this point. Maybe we use it for something else. It feels like a more private thing to try, but we'll do it on Crowdcast as normal. But then Discord will happen for sure. That's something that's going to be a group. I'll find a reason to use that. Right. Anyway, that's it. You have a good weekend, Adam. I'll see you Monday.
Bye.
All right. That's it, everyone. Thanks for watching.